the payroll. So let's go over here to Intuit just to give you an idea of how the payroll ties into QuickBooks. If I'm in Intuit.com, Intuit's the owner of QuickBooks. I go into the QuickBooks item here, and then I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom so that I make sure I'm in the online. So this is where the products are. And then I'm going to go into QuickBooks Online. And you'll note that when you purchase QuickBooks here, this is the normal QuickBooks, QuickBooks Plus. Notice it doesn't often, at this point in time, I don't believe it has much with regards to payroll in this information here, which is a little kind of deceiving, although at this point, I think it's kind of just assumed that you're going to have to pay extra for payroll, typically, at least if you're in the United States, because of the complexity of it. So you can think of it as kind of an upsell type of thing. What's going to happen when you buy the software? It's going to ask you, do you want payroll? And if you do, it's going to upsell you, right? Which is usually kind of a sneaky thing that I don't really like. But again, with payroll, it's just kind of assumed, I think, that that's going to basically be the case. So you could go down and say, let's go down to the bottom here and go, all right, let's go to the payroll item and look at payroll and read up on payroll here. And then you can see the plans. Let's see the plans for payroll. So payroll core and essentials. And then you got the payroll plus and so on. And these payroll options will help us, hopefully, to do all the processing needs with payroll, which we'll talk about shortly. So you typically are going to want to have assistance, because if you get something wrong with payroll, it causes problems. And let me just point out that payroll is one of those things. When you're learning things, there are two ways to approach a problem typically, if we break it down into its simplest form. One is you go at it, you attack it, and you just tinker with it until you perfect it, right? It's like if you're trying to fix a puzzle or a Rubik's Cube, you just tinker with it until you get a little bit closer, and then you kind of figure it out. And that's great for some things. Other things, you don't want to do that. You want to study up and go into it and do it right the first time. Payroll is typically one of those second things. It's kind of like if you're cutting out a piece of wood to fit in a door frame, you want to make sure that you measure it properly before you cut it. You don't want to sand off the edges little by little, and you certainly don't want to cut the door too short and have to glue it back together, right? So payroll is one of those things where it's way better to get it right the first time, because if you have to go back and fix payroll, it's a pain. It's like trying to glue the door back together. It's kind of a messy situation. It's possible, but it's ugly. So that means that you typically want to have assistance with it, and that assistance will either be you have an external payroll provider, or you pay extra to have payroll help you process within the system. So that's going to be the general idea with payroll. Now, also just realize that the other thing that's interesting with payroll is really it should just be part of the vendor cycle, right? It should just be something that you're paying for goods and services. In other words, normally it used to be at one time that before they bogged us down with regulations that are just insane, you could say, hey, do you want to work for me? And you shake hands, and then you pay them for the work they do at the end of the, right? And that would be just a normal vendor process, right? There wouldn't be any crazy stuff that you have to do, right? But because of the laws and regulations, including withholdings, we have a whole specialty field that has grown out just to deal with the complexities of payroll. So that's the idea.